This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay. I'd like to call the May 16th, 2022 Easthampton Historical Commission meeting to order. First order of business is public speak. You guys have to say anything outside of what you come to talk about? Okay. We'll table the minutes till after we deal with the minutes to the Northampton School. Very good. Okay, you guys are first up. You had some projects that you wanted to talk about.
We do. So the discussion here is in regards to the current application for a new list of projects in regards to our bond application. First project being Science Lab Renovations. Science Lab Renovations.
Okay, that's all interior.
Which, yes, that was partially funded with the last bond when we came and spoke with you. Actually, didn't come. We were on Zoom last time, I think. And so that, like all projects these days, seems to be costing a lot more than we had planned and everything. And so when the decision was made to do the second bond, rather than funding it from operations, the thought was to extend that. So it is, as you said, interior, and so there isn't anything with this part of it, and you guys had seen that before. So
Good.
The second project was the John Wright dorm, which is off Park Street there, flat roof dorm.
next to the chapel,
Next to the chapel.
the brick flat roof building.
So the intention there is to replace the existing steam heat system with a new geothermal system, which Jeff had the undertaking how many years ago now of getting the wells installed for that.
Was it 3 years now?
I think it was
2
3 years
We
ago
did
now.
the last dormitory. We drilled an extra, this is just such a messy process. We decided we'd drill the wells as long as we were out there to take care of the other building.
Who did that?
It was a company out of Vermont that did the drilling.
Specialized.
Yes. Yeah.
So during that phase, all the piping from those wells is already entered into the building, with the new mechanical space to be created. I guess that's about it for that at the time being.
That's another thing that's not really going to affect the exterior.
Design is just about complete for that. Next one was the athletic center, the observation deck over what used to be the wrestling room. So that's been a flat roof problem for us for years, that we finally have the roof taken care of, and there's been a big push to get the observation deck back up and running for games and for parents' weekend and that sort of thing. So we have a plan in place for putting a new floor system on top of that roof area. Again, nothing changes with the railings that are there. Everything stays as it is. Next one, athletic center locker room bathroom renovation. Another exciting project.
Another internal.
No issue there. Thank you.
Next one I have on the list there is...
Unless it's a backflow issue.
Yeah, right.
It's just outside of
Wrong hours.
Circling back to John Wright dorm, we will be renovating the bathrooms in there as well. Sorry, this isn't more exciting.
Yeah.
It's gonna make a great movie though.
Yeah.
So the next one on our list is the head of school's house renovations, which is a little more of a project. So we've been working with a company out of Boston, architectural firm, that has basically drawn up the complete renovation from top to bottom of that house. Our intention through this part of the project would be to replace the windows, the porch, the back stairway from the porch, interior stairs, hopefully the HVAC system.
Now, which building is that?
Yes. Yeah, that project was actually part of the first bond.
Oh, the
one that you
as well.
already
Is that the
So-
wheelchair ramp? No, it's.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's still in the project, but
It's
not,
still in the
not
project.
part of this
But
phase.
it's that same building.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, right, yeah, you looked at the drawings we had for the ramp.
Our most current intentions would be to replace the windows.
Okay.
Because the existing ones are so inefficient,
Gotcha.
as you might think.
All right.
At the same time, our intention is to not affect the stucco on the outside of the building in any way. Just deal with the opening itself.
This was the appointment next to the chapel.
Yes. Yeah.
And the last one we have is the resurfacing of the track out at Galvin.
Yeah. That's, track is fairly new, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's
It's not 50 years old.
2000, no, it's 2005 or 2006.
It's getting up there. It's always.
It is. and
Yeah,
Surprise.
Yeah,
This is the last chance it has for a resurface
Yeah.
before it's a replacement, so.
yeah, every 7 years, redo it after 3 times.
That's it.
So,
You guys have a lot of work this summer.
so basically, all these projects either we've seen before or they involve like stuff outside of historic or anything.
Yeah.
I guess except for maybe the head of school's house with the window replacement, which I think did we already look at what was going to be put in? Don't recall from last year.
Yeah, I don't think that we have a specific window. The thought then, and the thought now is that the, grid patterns and everything in the windows
Matching what's there is
Basically,
very
we're
similar.
matching everything that's there.
And the porch replacement?
Who built them? Who would build them?
The company that's making the windows is actually National Vinyl. I think they're located in Springfield. Somewhere close. They were
But
purchasing
they're
them through.
fairly large windows.
They are. We're purchasing through Flurry Lumber.
Sorry, in the porch, is that gonna just be aesthetically the same? Or
Yeah, for the most part, nothing's really changing, other than it just needs,
Refreshing.
showing its age.
Yeah.
Okay, like I said, after looking through this, it's either stuff we had already approved or stuff that we really don't need to look at. What do you need from us?
The same letter that you sent last time. Just
Do we have an update?
because it's the Massachusetts financing. They require. I have that if you would like.
Make it easier to find. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sure I have
because
it
of
somewhere.
the tax exempt financing, they require that we bring the projects before the local board.
A little bit of good luck might help too, Mike.
Yeah.
It's going to be easy if you can put that.
Yeah,
Do a little
Yeah.
ceremonial letter.
Whatever it takes.
yeah. I can make sure that Brian has to do all of it, and I'm leaving, so.
That's right.
Easier to find.
Yeah, July 1. Or June, and sometime around then, anyway.
What year? What year?
Yeah, it'll be like a month short of 40 years. So,
You're gonna love it.
yeah, I hope so.
I have especially loved it during
You
the
have?
pandemic.
Yeah.
We all wanted things to be different during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, we have to work on the clock.
Which needs it.
Yeah, I went up there and there was, I have to get up and take the whole thing apart. Repair it.
Yes, I saw the report that was given to the church. It's a lot.
Oh, there's a lot that needs to be done. I can just get it running again. That's all.
Anybody on the committee have any questions for the, no?
They're always so, yeah, they're always so good.
Would anyone like to make a motion to send a similar letter to last time?
I move that we repeat our last letter and send it off to the appropriate boards or.
Everybody makes a motion to basically send a similar letter. Do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, very good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
We'll see you Wednesday.
That's right.
Earlier hours.
Yeah, right.
Enjoy your retirement.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll still be in the area. And maybe still around Williston here and there.
There's plenty going on.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
See you
Have a good
later.
night.
Good to see you all.
Wow.
Okay. Approval of the minutes. Do we have minutes?
No.
Do we have,
Something that I said, well, we haven't grilled them yet.
do we have minutes from
Yeah, I do. But I wasn't,
420, right?
yeah, but I wasn't here for that, so I'm hesitant to approve them, so, or,
Did you guys get them? Read them?
No, I
Fairly basic.
probably read it.
We still need minutes from 3 now.
Yeah. I apologize.
It's okay. Just do it on overtime.
Well, just eventually, I'll make up the minute.
I don't know what, I'm supposed to go watch it and write some minutes.
At this point, I have to go back and watch it too.
I mean, that's what I always have to do anyways, because I can't remember.
Okay.
Even with my notes sometimes, it's like, a motion to accept the minutes as written.
We accept them.
Second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
That's 3, okay. Sorry to exclude you from this conversation, Nora.
completely understand.
Okay, so we're still waiting on 3-9, but we approved 420. Okay, item number 5, historic sign program.
Yeah, so, a couple months ago now, we received an email inquiry from a resident asking about whether or not there was a historic sign program or whether or not the city was interested in, well, it was less respectful than that. But it was just sort of like, the city should do this. We should have a sign program. You guys should make it happen. And of course, I went to the mayor and planning director and myself and any number of other staff. And so, it being a historic sign program, now coming to the commission because it seemed like, there was some merit to the idea, even though the way that it was presented.
Was this come through the city website, or was that how it was mentioned? Do you know?
No, I mean, it was a
Somebody
direct email to,
direct
like, the mayor, myself, planning director.
It just,
And it was related because it was like, well, we're doing all this work on Union Street, so this should obviously be part of that project, that it has nothing to do with the private buildings and everything to do with the infrastructure.
right.
So that's a little bit of the background to it, but it did have some merit in that, like, a lot of towns have some sort of historic sign program that range from just like a plaque on the building saying, like, owner's name and approximate date of construction to, bronze plaques that say, paragraphs about the architectural design and the historians and that. And, it's something that I didn't want to say no to. I didn't want to say yes to it either because I don't have the time to make that kind of program happen. But it seemed like it was something that, historic commission was interested in taking on, or at least discussing, we should start that discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. One would think a whole rubric would have to be set up for like what would qualify, what is information is shared for any structure or event, or, I mean,
Right.
and is this just in terms of where all the construction is, or is this sort of?
Well, I mean, so
Greater
the
Easthampton?
email that came in was just like, you know, you should do this on Union Street because of the construction.
Sure.
It was like, they don't really make sense to, because why one? But I think if the commission was interested in it, it could take whatever shape and form you guys were interested in doing with it.
So where would we start?
Well, I would think that starting with the idea of like, this seems like that you know, there are a lot of historic structures in the city, and that some sort of plaques or program could be created to recognize them. Obviously, it's private property by and large, so there's you know, outreach to private property owners
As to whether they want one.
as to whether they want
Yeah.
one, whether or not they're interested in it, whether or not they're interested in paying for it. Could it be used? Because like the historical commission doesn't have a budget. You know,
$40, don't we?
Yeah,
what's that? 40?
Up from 25, I think.
Oh, I wasn't even aware of
Oh,
that.
yeah, we used to go to town with that.
Yeah.
We used to have enough for stamps.
Oh,
Back in the day, you needed stamps now.
so now we just put it through the postage machine.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, you know, there's obviously a lot of historic structures. We have a lot of inventory buildings. We could work out that. We could narrow it to starting with Cottage Street or Union Street or Main Street, looking at just commercial buildings, or, you know, if there's like particularly amazing examples of historic homestead that people thought of.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, it would probably the Main Street Historic District should probably have signs on the 3 ways coming into it, 4 ways.
Right, I mean, so there's the historic district signage, which would be separate from maybe the historic structure, the buildings.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's, you know, something if we build up,
Right.
put up signs, that would be like, you know, probably a good starting.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you could use a sign program, you know, depending on the you know, amount of historical information you want to put on the signs. It could be a lot of work. It could be a very simple thing too. You know, if it's just like a building name and a date, that's a pretty easy program to do. If it's but even that gets tricky sometimes. We don't have great I mean, we can go off the building inspectors with like the assessor's property cards for property creation dates, but those are not always accurate.
Yeah, I mean,
So it's not without work. It's just like if there's interest.
I've been asked about it a lot. I know a lot of people have inquired, and I've met a lot of homeowners that wanted to know more about their home. But you know, a lot of them sort of had the notion that, I don't know, gnomes come in at night and take care of these things. I don't know, but no, they don't. Yeah, for the record, they don't. But it occurs to me, that there's a lot of interest, that it seems like it would be good for the town to encourage people to have that, you know, pride in their home, and if possible, to learn about it. But I wondered, would we want to poll to determine, are we looking for some sort of standard plaque that is the, you know, official template for if you want to do that, or do we want to, and it occurs to me that if we did any kind of wooden plaque or anything like that, or I guess metal too, we'd probably want to work with somebody local. So there might be a way that there could be like this menu of templates for a couple of layouts made by a local, geez, I don't know, do we have local woodworkers? So, you know, maybe there's a way to make that a win-win for everybody.
Right, and there's no money right now. So it would be an entirely, I think it would have to be a program where interested property owners are willing to pay, you know, $500 or $1,000 to get, depending on the size of the sign, the quality, like the amount of information. You know, but when I look around and see like historic plaques, they're often bronzed, you know, and those are not cheap. But if it's just a name, if it's just a name and a date, then like a wooden plaque or
I guess, yeah, I would delineate between what I had imagined we were talking about, which for me would be 1873, maybe John Friel, if we're throwing the name of who built it in 1873. Great, okay, that's it. But if we're talking about like the kind of brass plaque that's like Ebenezer so-and-so in 1233, you know, what I would assume that's only for the highest of priority. That would be a much smaller number of buildings, I would imagine, of prime historic significance.
Well, even if you just look at the neighborhoods in Easthampton and their creation, the utilitarian reason why they were created, those could have just some plaque that would not be on someone's house. That
Right,
would
like
say,
the mill buildings,
This is
or the mill
significant
workers.
because this whole neighborhood was
Yeah.
created because X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Or that would bring New
Yeah.
City.
Right,
Kind of like
Exactly.
the Vegas sign.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
But
mean,
that could be, that
It
could
is
be,
interesting.
right, that's
Yeah.
maybe a metal plaque that's freestanding versus, again, and maybe it occurs to me if we did it, we could even, because all I need is a template and I could just make my own, right? We could put that online and encourage people if you want to, but we would just help them, one, have some idea of how to do the research, because we're not going to police the accuracy of the information if they're buying it themselves, are we?
That actually sounds nebulous. I don't know if anyone's seen in Williamsburg, there's a house that has a plaque kind of near Route 9 and it says, at this location, nothing particular happened. I mean, and I'm sure that's not the only place that has a plaque like that.
Right.
But, you know, I was one of those like Sunday drivers, I was like, oh yeah, it's a joke. But it's like, I mean, anyone could say anything.
Right.
Superman was created at this residence by
Right.
Helen Reddy when she wasn't singing. And that would be the plaque that would be there. But, I mean, I don't know. But then homeowners or renters could put up whatever they want in their houses.
well, they
That's-
can do that now.
Exactly, that's what I
Yeah.
mean.
But,
Yes,
but it's, you know, I think, so my parents live in Boston and they have a house that's built in 1915 and they, you know, just decided one day that they were gonna go online. They bought a little it was like little plastic thing. It says like C 1915.
There you go.
And they put up, and,
So
you know,
cool.
and like, it probably cost them $50 to buy
Yeah.
the sign from, there's like some sign program that does this all over the place and no one, and they just decided to do that. There's no like program. It's like,
To even look at someplace like Dentist Raffles or what
yeah,
type of, you know, signage.
but it depends, you know, whether or not this is a residentially focused, or if it's the commercial buildings, or starting in the National Register District and the National National District.
Would people think that it might be the kind of thing that we would encourage everybody to do, but maybe fund is there a way to like sort of say, you know, we're gonna choose the top, I don't know if it would be the top tier, or do you just make it a raffle for all the people that apply, and we'll,
I don't think there'd be well, I guess it depends on how much outreach there is, but if it's targeted outreach, then it would be, you know, talking to, say, the owners of historic buildings on Union Street, or Main Street, or Cottage Street, and then once, you know, that takes 3 or 5 years to like go through, and then maybe it gets expanded.
I would think a decent way to kick it off would be stuff that, you know, is already like the historic district. You know, get those signs out. People see that involved. Cemeteries maybe. especially the East Green Cemetery, a little more significant. Old Town Hall, sign off, maybe, or fund that through their renovations, maybe.
There are, yeah, maybe.
Maybe, I'm just saying, it's, to ask them, hey, you're going to put all this money into it, can you spend another $100 and put a plaque out there that says, added to the National Register on such and such a date,
If we're talking about are we talking about like half a dozen? Do we think if
This
it were?
is literally like
Well, I'm
up to.
sure.
You know.
I guess I mean what you're imagining. Are you imagining we're talking about the top?
starting with stuff that we kind of know that's already either like on the National Register or outside of the National Register, like the community center or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
Exactly.
probably under a dozen, right?
Probably.
Because I'm
So-
wondering, would this be appropriate to ask for CPA funding? We haven't asked for much.
CPA can't fund a sign program.
Yes, we
So
have.
like
course.
we can fund.
It's historic, but it's not-
CPA can
yeah.
fund
Well,
like a sign program. Like if there was a sign as part of a major renovation, like Old Town Hall, the CPA could fund the creation of a plaque that's for that project.
and we did the rail trail, and so I guess we've done. It's an interesting question. What delineates the kind of signs?
When it's part of a capital improvement project, you
It's public
can
good.
put the sign in for it. But if it's a
So
sign,
Union Street, technically, you could put signs on it.
but it's not a CPA funded project.
Yeah, right.
But the signs could be. I'm just asking. I'm just throwing it out there as like
I
means
think-
to try to get to yes.
I think, of course, the starting point is you kind of want to know what, where, and how, and then see what you can do,
I still.
Because you can say, oh, it's a great idea, and, we can talk about it for a couple of years, and not really get anywhere. So, maybe we can find somebody else that has a program and see what they have, how they did it.
We were in
Just
Whitford,
research.
Rhode Island twice last year. It's a really charming little town, seaside town, very close to Rhode Island. And it's a lot of historic homes. And it was very, you walk down the street and they were very simple plaques with the original owner and the date. And, just simple wooden plaques on almost every house.
If you go to Southampton, they have that along Route 5 and Route 10 in Southampton. You go to Williamsburg, they get a lot of that on Route 9.
Well, like when the house was built.
With this house was built in the year. And those are.
I mean, that's obviously you could have that as a part of the sign program. I guess, the first question is where do you want to put the signs? Or,
Sounds like maybe we
where,
should.
where would be best place for certain signs?
And another way to look at this is if you start with private property and reaching out to private property owners, it's used as a self-generating, like let's say it costs $4,000 for like a bronze plaque of 8.5 by 11 or something like that, because they're expensive. And so you charge $5,000 for it, and the extra $1,000 goes into the historic sign program account. And then after we've done a few of these, then there's some money in the sign program account that then the historic commission can say, great, now we're going to do a welcome to the National Register, Main Street National Historic District. Well, we're going to tap into these funds that we've sort of raised.
So, okay, that's a way to hold that for sure.
Or maybe this is a, really good program and, go to city council and ask for an appropriation from city council to fund the program, or putting it into the mayor's budget for the next fiscal year, or the next fiscal year. So, but I think it's just, if it's something that's interesting and we want to move on it or keep talking about it or figure out a way for it, then, I think that's a good place to be at for
Fair
today.
enough. I mean, I'm certainly willing to look into it more too, see what other places are doing and done. Why not? I mean, like I said, I get questioned a lot. It's like, how come we don't have our national, historic districts that doesn't have a sign?
But I also hear a lot of individual homeowners, but it sounds to me like maybe for the moment, we're concentrating more on downtown and commercial. And then maybe what we would do is parallel, I mean, it's easy enough to maybe put out an idea to the general population that like, hey, if you're interested, like here's some tips on doing the research, and then here's some layouts for the kinds of signs you might put on your own home. And that could just happen independently as just word of mouth.
There's Mantis Graphics are always brought up, and you could go to them and say, give us 3 different designs for, name of property owner here and city of Easthampton, whatever it is, and then you can go and post that, and then Mantis Graphics has the design, and they can say, okay, it's $60 to get this created, and then it all just happens facilitated, but not actually taking anyone's volunteer time to manage past that initial, here are the 3 designs we want.
So maybe we do that for the non-commercial side, and then for the commercial side, maybe we're pursuing, do we want to start with asking the building owners, pick a handful of buildings and test out their willingness or interest? Somebody volunteer?
I'm willing to put a sign on my house. Build a nice one too, as a hotel.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that would be great to have.
Then we'll have to reroute the street so people don't buy your house and see the sign. Yeah, so it's a good idea. Like you said, I mean, obviously we could, if you're doing something where put the onus on the homeowners to actually make the purchase, that would be fairly simple, I suppose.
Right. But I think the more complicated ones would be any that would require any sort of historical text being added to it.
Right, absolutely.
And that's where I see.
And I mean, then you have the other dynamic of the properties that are no longer there, that, if something significant was there, then you could actually commemorate,
Right, and again, going back to using this as like a fundraiser type thing, then you could go back and do, okay, well, there used to be this house on Pleasant Street or Holyoke Street, the one that, I've mentioned quite a few times, got knocked down to your apartment. There's opportunities to like fund some of these through that sort of program. There would be a lot of legwork though to make something like this happen. Because it's not
well,
something
you
that
certainly need a clearer vision than what we have right now as to what you want to do. Otherwise, you'll be spinning your wheels for a long time.
Well, Northampton has had those kiosk signs too, downtown, about the history of certain areas too.
We could,
There's some
And some of them-
right in the middle of town and in different places through town.
and some of them are so faded and outdated, or at least they haven't been up yet. The sun is, the UV is really stripping away, but like, I'm sure someone spent a lot of time and effort to make these, and you go there and like, you really can't see it. So like, I mean, definitely a good idea to learn from other municipalities before we go out and
Absolutely.
say like, all right, let's go ahead, we can get this, here's this company that'll do it cheaply, and then it only lasts
Yeah.
for 3 years or something.
it occurs to me we could also sort of start with a non-material version of this. We just take a map, and because especially if there's text involved, I guess we would want to sort of work out, everybody's going to pitch in on the language, I imagine. But we could just take any map or virtual map and start sort of pinning those in a way that doesn't require anything more than this is what we think it would probably say, and then build out again, because I was initially thinking we were talking about potentially hundreds, if not dozens, but of private homes, and now it sounds like a brass plaque that's $4,000. That's probably, we're talking more likely a commercial building on Union or Cottage or something. And that's
Or Ferry.
right. Yeah, very
It's like the Pleasant Street Mills, or Cottage Street Mills, there's
Right.
Shop Road.
yeah, okay.
And you know, some, you know, there are some property owners with deep pockets, and there's some property owners that don't. So,
We were just in Amsterdam. An interesting thing was a project that someone undertook. I can find it. I do have this somewhat organized.
Just looking at this here, while she's looking, I mean, you got the old fire station.
Yeah.
You got the Payson Church, which houses the town clock. Right there, that's two signs. You know, especially because probably not many people know that. That clock actually belongs to the town.
and-
Right, yeah,
I mean, yeah, sort of.
yeah. Well, it was, you know, I mean, that was the highest place in town at the time.
Right.
Because it was built before the old town hall was. That's why the
Yeah.
clock ended up there. Why they didn't move it.
Well, I mean, I looked for a while to try to find any records, and there's no records saying that it's the city's.
Yeah.
It's just,
I think what happened, the city probably bought it. Yeah. Just put it there.
There's someone undertook this project in Europe to recognize the houses where Jews who had been taken, where they used to live. And so when you'd go around Amsterdam in front of a house that had been the home of a Jewish family, there would be these little plaques, and they were only about this big in front of the house. So this particular house had 7 people that were sent off to a concentration camp. And this person was doing it through Europe. And we came to a number of houses in the streets where there were maybe just 2 plaques or 3 plaques. This particular one had 7, but they're brass and they're small. They're very small plaques. I mean, you could even think of a plaque being on the sidewalk where a building used to be.
there's a lot of ways to go on like the design and placement. But I guess I think that if the commission's interested in doing this, then probably some sort of targeted outreach directly to property owners, just see if they're interested, you know, and what they'd be willing to pay, and you know, maybe being able to get a ballpark idea of what Northampton does, or what Southampton does, or what Springfield does, and you know, how much they're charging for their program, you know, whether or not it's being subsidized at all by the city, or if it's all entirely privately funded, or what. Like I said, I don't have time to take this on, which is the other piece of bringing it to the commission.
How does everyone feel about this?
I'd like to see it happen. I was shocked when, we bring up a brass plaque, because I had thought, we're talking about like a wooden plaque that might cost $30 if it was nice. But I was also thinking private homes like mine want to do independently. For something like the ones that are already by Williston, by the library or on the old town hall, that seems like the kind of thing where not only would you be talking to the building owner first and foremost, you're not going to put anything on the building without their permission. So that's the beginning and the end of the first step, as far as I can tell. Past that, I would promote it, of course. I'm biased towards everyone knowing our town's history.
Interestingly enough, the old town hall, then there's the green building, and then there's a little brick building. I think the lawyers in.
Yeah.
There's a plaque on that building saying who did what when there. So it's a brass plaque. It's probably like that. I should, maybe on the way home, I'll stop and take a snapshot of it.
And I guess
Send
I'm
it to you.
realizing, maybe we also might inventory the ones that are already here, huh?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Well, that's actually not a bad idea too. You can see what's out there.
Yeah, if there's, because we realize there are at least
I mean,
a few.
I've never stopped to read the whole thing, but it was like kind of got a sense. Okay, it's basically giving me the history of what happened at this place and when. Because it had like multiple dates and it was, like you said, it was really big. And of course, there's other places that you might think, oh, it's an interesting building, but there's absolutely no information.
Right.
Well, and like over on East Street, the French Indian War on the
stone.
taken, on the stone. And then the small, I don't know if that's WPA one, the one that's over by the cornfields.
Yep, the DAR.
DAR, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you do have the WPA buildings, would be probably okay to put plaques on.
Yeah, and there's that WPA sign on the sidewalk, no, not on the
There's
sidewalk, on the
symbols.
street over on Briggs Avenue, like literally on the street. It's a little plaque.
When we did sidewalks, the WPA would put,
Is
build these.
there a plaque at the old, we used to call the poor farm, right? The public farm?
There's something inside the building that says this building is on the National Register of Historic Places. I don't recall if there's anything on the exterior of the building.
Some interesting,
Can
because that's,
we talk about that a little?
Sure.
It's not on our menu. Evidently, it's closed right now.
It's in the process, yeah.
So I guess it has some serious structural issues.
So it's not being used at all.
So the city was leasing the building to Southern Middlesex Opportunity Council, and they were leasing it to people who had to meet, were considered very low income. Often were coming out of formerly homeless people. Wright was a single room occupancy building. So each person has their own single room, but there's shared bathrooms, shared kitchen. And Southern Middlesex Opportunity Council felt that the building was not in good enough shape for people to live in. There were a couple of structural things. I think the exterior of the building has some porches that are falling down. But interior-wise, I think it's more just about the upkeep of the building. It's just a very old building. Southern Middlesex Opportunity Council was on a one-year lease at a time. And so they said to all the residents, they helped them relocate to other properties that they manage or run. And my understanding is that the mayor is working to
in half stories, you know.
Okay, what did you think?
Well, I mean, nothing definite. Pretty much basically what you said, kind of, you know, just some things that were kind of left
Are we
like
looking at the street number?
unspecified, you know, as far as like the structural problems and whatnot.
The street
You know,
number of
comment
that
like, well,
building?
it needs to be torn down. Not
Do you
sure
know
if
what
they're
the street
talking about
number is? I
porches
did not
or
look.
the
I can look at that.
thing or whatever.
It's on all.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the building, besides the like physical problems with the building, the problem is that there's a historic preservation restriction on the building, meaning that any changes to the building, any repairs that are like considered major, need the permission of Mass Historic before they can be allowed. There's also an affordable housing restriction on the building, meaning that only folks who are making at most 80% of the area median income can live in that building. There's the land around the building is an open space. It's a permanently protected open space. So we can't expand the footprint of the building to build an addition or to build a new structure nearby that would make it more some sort of cluster or something like that. So it's just complicated to redevelop for anything other than low-income housing that lives in a historic building, and historic renovations are expensive. So, and the way that the building's being run is that the residents were paying like $300 a month in rent. And so you can't raise enough money off the rents to make the repairs, even if the buildings were historic. It just doesn't generate enough revenue. There's supportive housing, so there was staff available, if not 24/7 in that building, 24/7 within the 5 buildings that Storm runs in Easthampton. So,
Yep. Well, I think we should keep it on our radar anyways, since it's already in.
yeah, I mean, to add it to the agendas for future meetings and
Yeah.
we're discussing.
We'll put us on.
And then we can knock it down.
Well, it's an interesting place anyways. Okay, so anyways, back to the historic sign program. We have interest to kind of pursue this, find out more, some ideas maybe for next time around.
I'd be interested in just going to Mantis Graphics and talking to them about signage. How many
Yeah,
other-
maybe, sure.
Yeah, how many other places in town do we got that are similar to Mantis?
Don't know anymore.
There's another one.
There used to be a couple places, but I'm not sure if they exist anymore.
There's like the Crowbar. Does
Well, the place down, what's his name? They're over on Neal Street.
Crowbar.
Cromer, yeah. I'm not sure exactly what they do, if they do
I
signs.
think they do like a lot of vinyl lettering.
Mhm.
Like they'll do like if you wanted to do a wrap your car,
Your car, yeah.
or you know for your business.
That's
But they
totally
also do
different.
they do vinyl sign they do vinyl signs, and I think they do aluminum. But like again, it's like
I think it's a great idea. We could actually have John's car wrapped. It's promoting the sign program
Yeah.
for the historic.
Just park it out in front of individual buildings
Yeah, there
with
you
the
go.
signage, or just mobile temporary signage.
I love it.
Or one of the little things on top of the car.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Actually
Doesn't get any
painted
more
a-
historic than
Painted a
that.
flat black like a chalkboard. You could just do chalk drawings, and you know, so that way we could just change it all
Yeah,
the time,
there you go.
week to week, or
Just drive through the car
rainstorm to
wash.
rainstorm.
Yeah, there you go, right.
They also just, graffiti people's houses
Yeah.
too.
Right.
There's like 1851 in 5-foot tall letters.
Yeah, this place be old.
Okay, so we will continue to, we'll leave that on the agenda. I don't think we need any kind of motions at this point.
No, it just seems like general interest. And
Yeah.
keep discussing it.
Right, so we'll keep this. Okay, the next is the response to Verizon Wireless. I was working on drafting an email to them. We've got like 2 more days. It's somewhere in my pack that didn't come with me. It's probably work on my desk.
Which was
Just
on,
need to today.
which building?
The smokestack tower.
Oh, right. For on Pleasant Street.
No, I was thinking as I was looking at the smokestack today, are they adding more, or are they changing what was there? Did you get a
I
sense,
don't
do you
think
remember?
I got a copy of this. Was this by email?
It was- I mean, this is what it looks like now. It's a lot more visible than I actually thought it was. So, because you can see it from a few different places. As I was looking, I was snapping a couple of pictures thinking, are they replacing those? They putting more on there? So, I'll have to double check that. I don't have it at my apartment at this point. I guess I must have left it at my desk. I didn't work today, so. Not that it was a day off, but God, it's probably busier than if I had not done it. So anyways, we'll probably be emailing that out in a day or 2 anyways. Does anybody want to see it or a copy of it? Correspondence, I did not get anything. Then we'll delay by law.
We discussed this last time. Discussed this a few times. And are we ready to go into a work session or?
How long you gonna be here till?
I mean, it'd be great to finish this up. So, I think the last draft I'd sent out was dated March 9th. We discussed some things and then I made some edits. I don't know that I had sent out the version that we sort of like talked about at that last work session. But we also didn't get fully through the draft, so maybe it'd be helpful to just continue on where we left off, and then we can submit a revised draft, and we'll look at it at the next meeting, and keep going, keep working on it, and get to try to wrap it up.
Okay, sounds good.
Do people have copies of it, or?
I need myself.
I have that.
Is it in the Google Drive, maybe?
I thought it was a shared thing.
Yeah,
It is.
To go get it.
It is shared.
Well, we could table it till the next meeting and bring our copies. Unless that is stressful.
Also try to put it up on that screen, if you want to try to take a minute to make that happen.
Something you just
Do you want to, I guess there's really nothing else. list?
Not that I know of.
It was on the first page there.
Okay, so nice graphics in this.
Yep.
Okay. That was surprisingly easier than I expected. Alright. So, maybe that's too big?
Sorry, what?
I'm just trying to get it to a point where you can read it.
That's good. You can actually see it.
Okay.
I can still see it.
There's a little delay, so you have to watch it on the screen. So I think we sort of got a little bit through 1 and 2 last time, and then I think I added some of the language here. The initial determination will be positive if the structure is listed on, and then that was taken from the previous, just directly from the definitions rather than referring to the definitions. There was discussion last time about how we can make this determination and who makes the determination for that initial, is it historic and do we need to?
Instead of having to go to a meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
so under the way that it's currently listed, it's very cut and dry with the initial determination, right? It's like either on the National Register or in a National Register, on the National Register, or it's pending an application. It's been inventoried by the city, or it's pending an inventory by the city. If the commission has voted that it's historically significant previous to that application, or if it's 50 or more years, or we don't know or we don't know the date of construction. this will capture most buildings in the city for most demolitions and partial demolitions and reconstructions and, you know, additions and changing out someone's bathroom or, I added the words exterior of the structure so that maybe would, if it's an entirely interior renovation, it wouldn't get picked up.
Good. Yeah.
So, and it would be the chairperson who would make that determination if designated, and that designation would then last forever, basically. It would not be just like a designation like one at a time. Maybe the chairperson would designate it for a year or something like that, but it wouldn't be something that the commission would then have to meet to then designate the chairperson to do that every time an application is received.
Oh, but you're talking about the designation of the person that's allowed to make the determination.
Right.
I hate to ask, but because it's the kind of technicality that this sort of business seems to require. Do we need to attach that to a position or give it some kind of automatic termination so that by law someone isn't messing with us? Not that anybody would, but you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I think
Well, the commissioner is chairperson.
but what I'm saying is, so once the person has been designated by the chairperson, is that like a Supreme Court justice? Is this a for life?
well, I mean, it depends. So, like, the commission would vote and say, we designate Mike Serwick as chairman of the commission to make these determinations. And then if nothing else is said, then that's forever. But if it was like for the period of 1 year, then it would be on the commission to then, a year later, to make a new designation.
I would think if you designated the chair, or whoever it may be, it would always be somebody attached to the historical commission.
I'm not feeling any concern other than just trying to
Yeah,
dot
I mean,
the
the
i's and cross the
only-
t's.
Okay, we'll put it this way. Say if I was a designee, but I was not able to make the, I wasn't around, I was doing this winter, travel a lot, for a month. And, yeah, I gotta pick someplace nice. Then somebody else would have to do that. So that's when you need to, or in his absence, who? I guess that's where the big question is, because if it's just the chairperson, that's whoever's in this seat, that's fine, that shouldn't be an issue. And it's fairly, if it's fairly cut and dry, whether it's positive or negative, which I think it kind of is, right?
It's good.
Then it really shouldn't be that much of a
I mean,
shoot.
it's really something like where it's this cut and dry. I mean, it could literally be the building commissioner could be the designee if
That's the goal, right? Is to be able to shunt some of this so that it isn't always a meeting every time it comes up.
Yeah.
right.
Well,
But then the question, but I think the historic commission wanted to have some sort of oversight,
Yeah.
so it should be.
Well, I mean, either the commission as a whole, chairperson, or a member designated by the chairperson. Does that sound reasonable? So if I'm not around, you call Beverly and say, Mike's not here, he said that you're next, can you take a look at this and give me a determination? Does that sound right? I mean, the way to do it?
I mean, I think that it should be the commission. I don't think that you'd want the chain of well, the commission designated you, and then you designated Beverly, and Beverly designated me, and then I told my dog Spot,
So you mean it goes back to the commission?
It should
The
go back to-
designation always comes from,
it should come directly. So it could be that the commission, which I originally had it was the commission or its designee.
Right.
So it could be a planning department person, it could be the mayor, it could be any number of people in the committee, I mean, in the city.
I mean, in some ways, and you're looking down the road 20, 30 years, there may be some people you don't want to have that power.
But it sounds like, really, as long as we always have a designee, then we're covered, right? So like if you are in a tropical island.
Well, yeah, it should be a member of the commission, I would think.
Yeah, it should be a member of the commission.
So then, and then if the chairperson's absent, then it goes back to the full commission.
Yeah, you could do that. I
Or-
mean, in a case, where, like you were saying, it could be the mayor, could be planning, could be this. We had the house on Main Street there that, Moriarty wanted to tear down. The mayor was like, oh, we're giving them a demolition permit. We don't care what you say, type of attitude. It was keeping caring.
Right.
So, there's always that, it could be something that we really wanted. You could have a mayor in there that's going, I don't want that house there anymore. I don't want to deal with the guy that owns it, and blah, blah, blah,
We had someone on the commission that
Yeah.
gave permission to take down the house.
Yeah. So,
Well, I mean, there's no, I mean, no matter how strong this ordinance is written,
there's always ways.
there's always going to be,
There's no protection from the committee itself.
right, and there's no protection from the committee itself, and there's no protection from, people who are just ignorant of the bylaw or sort of ordinance or.
But what we're looking for is that happy medium where we're filtering out so that every minor repair of a sink faucet doesn't have to come to a town meeting, and yet the historical commission has the ability to grab the important stuff and go, whoa, slow your roll, let's have a look at this and make sure everything's above board. So it's kind of right, the perfect porridge.
So would you prefer to see something rather than the chairperson, then it says like the commission or a designated member of the committee, if that's something that's like more specific, so it could be any number of people
Right.
on the commission.
Kind of said it, Mike, right? So the commission, a member of the committee, chairperson, or, or do we need designee in between, I guess? So the commission,
Or
the committee,
commission,
I guess you could
if
say,
designated, or a member of the commission if designated by the commission. Or it could say, or a designated, or a designated member.
There you go.
Differently sized than the ones or designated member of the commission.
that seem right?
It sounds okay. I'm just trying to wrap my head around exactly how. Okay,
Well,
so
let's-
something comes to the building inspector, you're going, okay, Mike's not here, we need to get a hold of somebody on the commission.
Well, it's not gonna be somebody, it's gonna be whoever was designated.
Yeah,
So we'll adopt this ordinance and then at the next
Okay.
meeting, the commission will meet and say, we're gonna designate the chairperson, and in the chairperson's absence, we're gonna designate in order of seniority of member of the commission.
Sounds good. Yeah,
Um,
that's kind of what I was wondering.
But it'd be-
How are you determining that?
It'd have to be formal, you'd have to take a vote on it, it would be part of the minutes and record of the historical commission that anybody theoretically who was like, how can this happen? There'd be at least like, you could dig it.
Sneaky.
Right.
Yeah, okay. No, good. That's kind of what I was getting at. How is it determined?
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
It's the problem with laws, it's like, plus we're not lawyers that I know of. You're a lawyer.
I play one on TV, but not.
Just like an Albany in Leicester.
negative, the commission or its designee shall notify the building inspector who may then issue a permit. If it's positive, the commission shall schedule a public hearing on the matter for a reasonable amount of time. Prior to the public hearing, the applicant shall submit to the commission a full set of plans and project narrative detailing the proposed demolition and shall include an application form as designated by the commission. The applicant shall indicate in the submitted plans and narrative whether the building is proposed to be wholly or partially demolished and how. Yes.
Has anything changed on the posting, like in the newspaper type postings or anything like that, because of the way things are nowadays? Or is it still?
When you're like asking about like mass general laws?
I guess, yeah.
No,
Okay.
nothing. So, and this is,
So you have to post in the least likely place that we see.
but so this is not, this is not authorized to like, so for zoning, when we have to do public notices,
Yeah.
it's because the state specifically governs the public process, governs how cities and towns can implement zoning,
Mhm.
and has said that any special permit needs to follow this notification process.
Yeah.
For historic commission, for demo delay, like it's not, my understanding isn't that there's no mass general law that we are,
Oh, you know, yeah.
that we're like
understand.
acting under.
Mhm.
So we have flexibility to implement it in whatever manner
So
works for
either
Easthampton.
you're putting a notice in the newspapers
So we could get
or
rid of,
city website.
right, so we could get rid of the public notice requirement entirely. We could have, you know, we had talked about this in the past about having a sign on the property that,
Right.
you know, and, yeah.
It occurs to me we also should have on the government website a direct place you could always go to see what's being demolished or seriously renovated.
How many people go with that?
I don't think many people would, but I think it would satisfy the access of the public to the information thing that's the important part, right? The goal would be that if I was concerned about that house next door, at least I could keep an eye on that, and there's no way that I could then go back and say, I never knew, it was torn down before I even knew it was gonna
You
happen.
would still want to notify the abutters, right?
Well, right, and I'm
Yeah,
using
I
that as an
understand what you're
example,
saying, but I just wanted to
Well, I mean,
clarify
we
that.
didn't get through that, but
Right.
yes. I mean, so what it says here is that you have to submit an application. The application has to be on a specific form as designated by the commission. If it's not received prior to the date of the hearing, then the hearing should be postponed. The notice has to be given in a public, notice of public hearing shall be published in a local newspaper twice in the 2 weeks preceding the hearing. A copy of the notice should be transferred, turns into building inspector, planning board, mailed to the applicant, owners of all properties within 300 feet of the affected premises, and to any other persons as commission seems deemed entitled to notice. And then the property owner shall place a sign on the property.
Is the current one 300 feet?
Again, that's,
I would say I'd up that, all the footage. 300 feet doesn't seem very,
Football field.
well, you don't want to be far. The goal is to be near, right? You want to be near the public way, not far
So-
from
so-
that.
no,
so
I'm
right-
saying within 500 feet.
Right now, what it says- right now, what the ordinance says is the mail a copy of said notice to the applicant, to the owners of all properties deemed by the commission to be affected thereby as they appear on the most recent local tax list. So it doesn't have, it doesn't have a distance at all. 300 goes to the zoning standard as set up by the state regarding related to zoning. We could go to 500, we could go to 1,000. The problem is that in an area like most of our older buildings are within the denser parts of the city, and you know, if you were to say take 300 feet of all the properties within 300 feet of 15 Cottage Street, you're gonna have 150 property owners. But if you do that same calculus down in the plains, you'll have 6 property owners. So like, not everybody is equally affected. 500 feet away from 15 Cottage Street, you might be on Liberty Street, and
Yeah, I agree.
so 300 is just a kind of something that, we could just do a budding property.
Well, I think, because, when Muncie was kind of opened down downtown, my neighbor down the hill noticed about a public hearing, but I'm just up the hill from him and I didn't.
Right.
But it's kind of covered, I guess, in that last sentence. Any persons the commission deems entitled to notice, so as long as we're on our game, we'd be including anything that wasn't covered by 300 feet.
Well, except that, it's
Too complicated.
it's gonna fall to me that, or who's ever in my position, it's gonna be some staff that's doing this, and they're gonna just go, all right, 300 feet, and let's get the assessors to give us that list, and unless, so at this point, the reality of how this is implemented is the designee of the commission, so one member says, oh yeah, this is significant. Jamie, can you make sure that this is scheduled for our next public hearing? It's scheduled for the next public hearing. I go to the list. The rest of the commission may not know that it's going to happen until the agenda comes out 48 hours in advance that says, oh, look at that. We've got a demolition delay hearing coming up.
Right, I see, yeah.
So we can flag this.
I guess it could be covered if there was just some way that the committee knew, like once the designation of who the, other persons entitled to notice would be. And that way, if the committee determined like, oh yeah, but we didn't include that, then it'd get covered. Otherwise, one would assume that it covers everything it needs to. And
Just wondering how would you determine who really needs to know? Would there's somebody in the neighborhood that's outside of 300 feet that you might want to notify?
Well, I'm guessing
I guess that's what it is.
Well, that's what I'm trying to imagine as a real-world scenario, because wouldn't it mean that, like you said, so for example, right here on this corner, it's going to be really wide sweeping. So likely everybody that would need to be notified is going to be notified and then some. Whereas the bigger concern would be that if, let's say, it was located in some dense area, but that some area or some building wasn't included because its back faces the parking lot or whatever. But if the committee sees that and someone would say like, oh yeah, no, but they need to know too, we'd pick up on it, so that it wasn't just missed because a staffer, no accusations or anything, but was overworked or just needed to get on with the day or whatever, that it wasn't just cookie cutter passed through without anybody. I guess I'm drawing from, I have a sister-in-law who, they bought a property based on what was going on that property, and then what happened next door really radically affected everything because they had they weren't involved in it. They didn't get notified. They weren't, so.
Can it be solved as easily as saying a copy of the notice shall be transmitted to the building inspector, planning board, and emailed to the historical commission members, and then
Or just include a historical commission in that group that sends it out? But, because that's before, right? The whole problem is just that otherwise it happens after the fact.
Exactly.
So if we just do it before we solve the problem, right?
Yeah.
So we could also say here that within 30 calendar days, the commission or designated member of the commission shall make an initial determination and transmit that to the other members of the commission. And then at least there's some notice here that, hey, everyone, I received this, it's negative. Like there's
Okay.
or I received this and it's positive.
Right.
And like,
Right.
if there's anything special about this that we need to deal with.
Right.
So that's good.
That seems desirable, doesn't it? Yeah, get in there. Let's have an
There's
allergy
something-
attack.
There's something in this room.
Yeah.
It's not me. It's not me. No. I'm fine today, so it's not bothering me.
Well, we've outlasted the storm too. It was really dark.
You know, it's facing the wrong way here. It's raining, it's raining.
No, it means you're less distracted.
That's right, that's what I mean.
Air cleaner is the cleanest air cleaner.
I need to replace the filters. Maybe you're allergic to clean air.
Living next to the highway too long.
That's
So
right.
there we go. Does that
That
help?
seems to
Does
resolve
that
it,
help
yeah.
to resolve those a bit?
Seems like it.
So adding to three, the first sentence of 3 and the first sentence of 4, that
The Historic Commission is also notified.
the commission
Let's see.
we could put a date on it. We could say 30 days, we could say 60 days.
30 days to make a
We should
determination,
schedule a
and
public
then you-
hearing at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the historical commission. I mean, reasonable is questionable as to like what
Right.
is reasonable and
Right, I mean, what I'm looking at, if you say, okay, we get the application on day 1, and it's, okay, I mean, it shouldn't take long anyways, but say it takes a week, so it's day 7. Have a determination positive, so you need to schedule a hearing. We were scheduled for a meeting that day, so now the meeting will be in 30 days from the determinations. You also need to, if you're going to require them to put up a sign and have the information, you need to give them a couple of weeks. So you can't say if making the determination on day 1 and day 7 is our meeting, it's only a week. So you may need more time than that to get their stuff together.
I mean, so it
Right.
could be scheduled public hearing on the matter within 45 days or
Okay.
longer if requested, if agreed to by the applicant. Because the applicant says, well, this is going to take me 2 months to get this all together.
Right. And we're always happy for a demo to be delayed further.
Right.
It's the other direction we're concerned about.
Right.
Hearing on the
Yeah.
matter. And
Well, they can, technically the determination shouldn't take more than a day, a couple of days to get through the process.
But as you point out, but if there's the other things that are supposed to kick in,
Right.
you have to have a fair
Oh,
Yeah,
opportunity.
you can't say like,
You
well,
have to go
the meeting
through
is
the
next
whole
week,
thing.
so
Right.
you better be there already, that doesn't make any sense. But you want to get within the 30 days.
So that it doesn't get bumped to 2 months because of the monthly meeting schedule.
Of course, I suppose if there was like, you get the application on day 1 and we have a meeting on day 7, you can always say, well, we know what we're going to say, but we're not going to tell them until day 8. That gives them the month,
Right.
and it's slow within our timeline.
Right.
But yeah, 45 days would probably be fine, or longer if requested,
schedule a public hearing on the matter within 45 days of determination unless a longer time is agreed to.
What do we need, like 2 weeks? notice?
Well, I think this goes back to whether or not we need and are requiring public notice in the newspaper. If we're not requiring public notice in the newspaper, then, because the newspaper requires about 3 days lead time to get a public notice, so at the minimum right now, we need about 2.5 weeks just to satisfy the 2 weeks of public notice. But if that gets struck, then we have to figure out what's the correct amount of time for sending out those butter notices, and that will be the limiting time.
I mean,
More than just the butters who are interested in what's happening in the property, so public notice in the paper is kind of a necessity.
it's not a bad idea. I'm just thinking that, so many people don't get the papers anymore.
So many people do.
Yeah, it's a catch-22, because I'd say some of the people that would be least likely to have internet are more likely to have a paper.
Right, yeah.
Some of us who refuse to do Facebook, see all the town postings on Facebook, we'd rather see things in the paper.
And it's an established method that, it's searchable too, so it seems like...
They must have legal notices online editions of the paper.
They do, but you have to have subscriptions.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the other, you need to.
That's not,
Catch 22 there.
It may even be, I wonder if it's even possible, it's just a slight tangent. I wonder if we couldn't get somebody who could figure out a script. We just go to where those, because the notifications are always in that same section of the paper. And all you gotta do is have something intelligent enough to strip out just the Easthampton ones, and then we'd be mirroring the links without duplicating the information. Just be making it, in other words, just making it easy for somebody to be able to click through from the easthampton.gov site to whatever that day's notifications were. Maybe there are none, maybe there are a bunch.
Yeah,
I'm not volunteering you.
I don't know that much.
I'm just-
coding.
I'm just...
But I do know that when I go to the Gazette to look at their website for their legal notices, like, I think they only store them for about 2 weeks or so.
Are they free access?
I don't know.
It's like obits are.
I think that you,
I think they have to be, don't they? It's a good question. We should find out, because I would have thought yes. And that would just make me, it all boils down to me thinking we should keep the paper function, not take it away.
Right.
do we need 2 weeks of notice? Do we need to have them noticed twice in the newspaper, or is once enough?
I'd say twice, 'cause,
I would go with twice.
Yeah.
I would. More notice is better. People hate being caught unawares.
They are. Cost about,
If you qualify for any state or federal assistance programs, we encourage you to check.
it costs about $600 to place a legal ad for twice. In the
Wait,
newspaper.
really?
Yeah.
What?
When we do the public notices for special permits from the planning board, it costs the applicant about $600,
Each person that has to do this has to pay $600 a pop?
just for the legal notice.
Okay, I was not aware of that. I thought that.
So that's why
free.
going to.
That's like an obituary. I thought it was free.
Oh, no,
Oh,
no.
obituaries are not free.
Obituaries are not free?
Oh, are you kidding me?
Nothing's
There's
free,
so much
John.
I don't know about newspaper ads.
Actually, I think you can access them for free.
But you can't post them for free is what I'm just learning.
No.
Which does make it a more onerous to demand it twice is what I'm
Right,
reacting
right,
to.
and so,
Yeah,
and like the
but-
Conservation Commission only requires their notices to be published once in the newspaper, 5 days in advance of the hearing. But under zoning, it's twice in 2 weeks, and it's, with every year they raise the cost, so it's,
It used to be free.
well, now it's about, depending, it's per the square inch of ad.
Same with obits.
Well, I guess it further argues standing with the status quo, because then we're not changing things.
You could get
People
into
will be
all
angry
legal
that
notices.
we're
Okay.
doubling up their expense to, right? It's just
Without
sticking with
even
what,
a subscription.
but it would just be the 7 days.
I would have thought that we would do for
Well,
Right-
no,
right now
Makes
it's-
sense,
that-
yeah.
Right, right now
Like
it
the old
is
bits.
twice in
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
So,
It's usually not
We
good
could go to
news
once
either
in-
one.
No, you're exactly right.
What do you think, Ben? Once in 2 weeks, twice in 2 weeks?
5 days in advance, 7 days in advance. 10
Could you
days.
do once in 14 days? That way it gives more people time to find out that, hey, I heard that building was gonna go, and maybe it's not in the paper anymore, but they could still find, is that an option?
I mean, it's up to, like, making it,
How long are these legal notices in?
what's that?
So the last public notice in here is from May 3rd.
Where are you?
That's 2 weeks.
Oh, you're at the Gazette.
I'm at the Gazette.
Yeah,
It doesn't go back much.
Right, and then,
That's
and
what
then,
it
which you're saying, so it only goes back 2 weeks, and then it's supposed to go to, there's this, website that aggregates them on the state level, it's like called mypublicnotices.com or something like that. But the Gazette hasn't been, none of the Gazette's legal ads are actually making it into that. I just found that out this morning. So I don't know what the like archival function is by using the newspaper. It's like no better right now than putting it on our internet, putting it on the city's website under the historical commission for a week and then taking it down.
But if it's printed in the paper, first of all, I'm leaning towards, if we said, you only have to publish it one time, but you have to do it 14 days before.
Does that get too complicated? Like,
That may be too far ahead.
Is it too far ahead? Is there some way to make it far enough ahead? I guess my goal would have been just to give someone more opportunity to find out that something that matters to them is maybe going to be destroyed.
We always did it in 7 days, I guess.
7 is, you think 7?
Well,
Stick with that. That's what's on the books now,
I
right?
mean, this is going to stay, this is going to stay on here for 2 weeks.
what's there now is
So
what's
2 weeks
on the
isn't
books
really a
now.
bad idea,
So you think 14 days?
if it's possible. I mean, we're kind of telling them that, you know, after the determination, when this public hearing is going to be the next historical commission meeting, which is more than 2 weeks away, right? So we would get the notice in, I mean, at the very least, you're talking 11 days in advance. So, I mean, if you were saying like, okay, we say you need a public hearing, and the next scheduled historical commission meeting is in 2 weeks, it's gonna take 3 days to get that in, so it's 11 days before the meeting, so 10 days.
I would go with 10 days. I mean, you know,
At minimum.
my inclination is the more we can do, the better, but not to the point it's too far, right? Yeah. 10 days seems better than 7. Not as bad as 14.
Well, I mean, you know, the thing is, if you do it twice, you don't really need to, it's just gonna be there.
And I admit, asking $1,200 just to put an ad in the paper seems to
No,
me.
it's not 1,200, it's like 300 per occurrence, so twice would be about $600 on the current, off the current length of, you know, what we put in for the monthly ad.
Okay.
You know, there are ways to get it shorter, but I mean, honestly, it's like, we might be able to cut $50 less words off it. You know, we're not like, it's not very much words. It's like, notice is hereby given that this person wants to acknowledge this.
Building down.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and having it twice is only for the people, sadly, who read the print with hard copies, which are less and less, so.
10 days wouldn't screw up the calendar, right?
Right,
Wouldn't make it
right.
so bad that.
Yeah, I mean, I think 14 days would be good, but at minimum 10 days.
Yeah, because I can see how 14 is going to start bumping the domino effect into the meetings and causing havoc.
So then
So it makes
10.
sense.
10?
10.
Great. A copy of the notice was transmitted to the building inspector, planning board, and mailed to applicants. 300 feet. So we can talk about that later, another time. Just, just conversation about increasing the distance or rephrasing it. You want to just limit it to butters and butters to butters. We can talk about later. When do we want the notice to go out? At the same time, 10 days out. Because then that gives the post office 2 to 3 days to deliver it, and you still have a week's notice to. At least. We have a sign on the property. And this has to be for 14 days, unless we want to stick to the same 10. I'd say 14.
Well, they would, it should be timed for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it may take, if it's 13, it's not affected that much.
I feel like this especially is probably going to be the least popular with the people applying and the most popular with the townsfolk, right? The people who are going to be affected. I'm thinking 14.
Okay. And it must remain standing until after the public hearing is complete. The chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that is that possible? So that it could just be something where here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. So what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that is that possible? So that it could just be something where here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. So what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that is that possible? So that it could just be something where here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. So what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that is that possible? So that it could just be something where here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. So what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that is that possible? So that it could just be something where here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. So what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that is that possible? So that it could just be something where here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. So what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that is that possible? So that could just be something where like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So like, it could just be something where like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So like, it could just be something where like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So like, it could just be something where like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So like, it could just be something where like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So like, it could just be something where like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So like, it could just be something where like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So like, it could just be something where like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So like, it could just be something where like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So like, it could just be something where like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So like, it could just be something where like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So like, it could just be something where like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So that, like, it could just be something where, like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So that, like, it could just be something where, like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So that, like, it could just be something where, like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So that, like, it could just be something where, like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So that, like, it could just be something where, like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So that, like, it could just be something where, like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So that, like, it could just be something where, like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
And I'm thinking maybe we could make a reusable one that has, is that possible? So that, like, it could just be something where, like, here you go, here's the sign you need.
Yep. I mean, so what I've seen Northampton do, the chair of the historical commission shall approve the proposed wording, size, and color of the sign and fonts.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.